been some time since we had our election, long as it was. Many people are asking why we don't have a cabinet as yet. Questions are being raised because if you go back, it's like 175 days since we had the first election, the declarations of which were made on the 11th of August. Someone would assume the president would have begun thinking about his cabinet the moment Chebukati declared him the winner. Although there was a petition that then nullified the election, we went to an election on the 26th. The president was going in this election alone without a competitor. At that time, he ought to have been thinking about cabinet. Assuming you would say, like the president said, he would wait until all processes are exhausted. Then you are looking at the 30th of October when he's declared the winner. You could still give him the benefit and say, well, let us go until the Supreme Court declares him validly elected. This again was done quite a while back on 30th of November. You could still give him some time and say, okay, Mr. President, you could begin thinking about your cabinet. The moment you are sworn in, that is like 52 days ago. The president has yet to give us a cabinet. And therefore, Kenyans are justified in asking for the reasons why. The first reason may be that this is a difficult job. Indeed, it is a difficult job forming a cabinet. But the president has done it before. He formed a cabinet in 2013, so this can be difficult. One could argue it is because of the promises he made in the run-up to the repeat elections of 26th of October, where many people from the opposition were opting into Jubilee, his side. And therefore, that these people are too many and the reward is difficult. Well, that may not make sense because we live in an environment in which leaders do not really care about what people think. One could maybe bring a very plausible reason, and that Ruto perhaps is giving him a hard time. That perhaps Ruto is looking at 2022 and that the cabinet is a beginning point. And as such, the conditions that Ruto is putting before the president are making it difficult for him to come up with his cabinet. I want to dissuade Kenyans from buying that kind of thinking. Our history shows clearly that presidents disregard those who do anything good for them. Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, double O, refused to form government, insisting that Kenyatta had to come from detention. Later on, Kenyatta dealt with Jaramogi Oginga Odinga ruthlessly. He forgot he's a man who made him. In fact, he put him under house arrest. He destroyed his political career. Later, Njonjo made Moi become the president. He scuttled the Change the Constitution movement that was led by what some people call Ngorokos, who wanted to change the constitution so that Moi did not act as president and therefore getting a head start. Njonjo scuttled these people. Famously remembered for saying it was treasonable to imagine the death of a president. Njonjo went through the shame of being called a traitor in a prolonged commission of inquiry. In 2002, Raila Odinga declared famously Raila Kibaki Tosha. Everybody thought Kibaki would give Raila the prime minister position and thereafter that Raila would succeed him. It never happened. Remember, in 2002, if Raila had stood with his LDP team, the contest would have been between Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga and not Kibaki. Because Kibaki would have had votes from his native Nyeri, a bit of Laikipia and Nyandarua, and maybe a sprinkling of votes from Bungoma, where his deputy would have come from. What happened? Kibaki forgot about Raila. So I don't buy the thinking that perhaps Ruto is kind of asserting pressure on the president and therefore delaying the naming of the cabinet. Here is my thinking. I suspect that the president is under pressure to sit down with Raila and talk to him. And therefore, what the president has done is to form a partial cabinet and take the juicy ministries, infrastructure of Macharia, finance of Rotich, interior of Matiangi. And the reason why I'm calling these ministries lucrative, they are juicy, there's a milk cow, each one of them is because of the huge projects in these ministries, the dollars in these ministries, so that when they come to sit with Raila and the NASA team, I suspect one of the conditions will be that since the talks are likely to take long, as a sign of goodwill, the president should include some NASA people in his team so that as the talks go on, because I think these talks could take about 2 years, they are feeling part of government. And that explains why, like I've said, these ministries that are juicy have already been taken, so that when they sit down, the rest of these fellows can take the matumbos in form of labor, environment, water, and such. So this, to me, is the main reason why we don't have a cabinet, and I suspect strongly, as soon as the president agrees to discussions with Raila Odinga, most likely before 30th, when Raila intends to be sworn in, this will come to pass, that a few NASA people will be included in government, and it will be government that has already taken for itself the best part. Whether this is good or not, I do not know, but I've given my reason, and I invite Kenyans to exchange, to have a conversation, and see whether I make sense.